Knowledge for Men, episode 51. Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Basically, it's everything you need to create an exceptional website. It's an all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, blog, e-commerce store, or even online portfolio. For a free 14-day trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code KNOWLEDGE. It's a really great platform for anyone getting started or looking to switch over to something easy to use with a great design. Again, that's offer code KNOWLEDGE for a free 14-day trial and 10% off. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Joe DeSena. He is the founder of the Spartan Race, and check out this guy's resume. Consists of over 50 ultra endurance events overall in his life and continuing to do them, which, by the way, if you don't know, an endurance race is a 100 miles plus race. Okay, he even did 12 Ironman races in 1 year alone. This is insane. And to get really clear on this, he did the Vermont 100, the Lake Placid Ironman, and Badwater Ultra in 1 week. Okay, if you don't know anything about these races, just here's a little brief, little summary of the Badwater Ultra. It goes to over 8,500 feet up to Mount Whitney, and temperatures soar over 120 degrees. Joe's also rode cross-country to the Furnace Creek 508, which has been coined the toughest 48 hours in sports. And despite having done all these races, he felt the world needed something harder. So together with Peak Races, he created the Death Race, which we'll be touching on in this interview. And he also, part of that came the Spartan Races. So Joe, I'm happy to have you on the show. Let's dive in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's roll in with a favorite success quote of yours, something that you've lived by and why.
One of my favorite quotes is by Winston Churchill: when you're going through hell, keep going. And I always challenge myself to these crazy endurance feats just to push my limits. And a buddy of mine who works for Spartan here in Vermont, we're in the mountains. We got 2 feet of snow hitting the ground today. And I said, why don't we pull a canoe to the top of the mountain? Not that it would make any sense to bring a canoe on top of your mountain, but I figured it'd be a good challenge. And it was an absolute bitch. I mean, trying to get a canoe up this mountain. But at one point, he turns to me and he says, hey, Joe, I got to ask you, what do you do if you bite off more than you can chew? And I said, you just keep chewing. And it just rolled right off my tongue. And so that quote of you're going through hell, just keep going is definitely my hands down favorite quote, something I've lived by.
And especially if I was actually doing one of your Spartan races or death races, I would want the guy in front of me probably to have a t-shirt that has this quote on the back of him, so I could always be looking at that.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm going through mud and I'm miles and miles in, I'm completely exhausted, and just seeing a guy that has a shirt that says, when you're going through hell, keep going. And I think that plays a lot with life as well. Any challenges you're going through, just keep going. And now, Joseph, let's go in with your story and how you got started with what you do and building these races and why.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it goes way back. When I was 8 years old, I was an entrepreneur. I sold fireworks in Queens, eventually building up to quite a substantial business. From there, I got thrown out of school when they caught me, and I got into cleaning swimming pools. And swimming pools are like, well, first of all, building your own business is the ultimate endurance test. Women will tell you that giving birth is pretty tough, and it is. If anybody's been in a bad accident, obviously that's pretty tough. But man, building a business is tough. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And so I built this swimming pool business for about 13 years. And then from there, got an opportunity to get a job on Wall Street and ultimately building a business there, which was another endurance feat. What I found when I was on Wall Street in my young to middle 20s was that the stress was enormous, but there was no stress release. So you were sitting at a desk a lot. Whereas in my previous business, I was always moving around and I had that release. And somebody turned me on to a 5K run. And I was getting chubby because I'd been sitting at a desk working on Wall Street, eating well. and it was exhilarating. But what pissed me off was a guy that was much heavier than me beat me in this run. And so that was it. That's all I needed. I'm a pretty competitive guy. So from there, I went to 10K, then a marathon. Then I said, what's harder than a marathon? And somebody turned me on to an adventure race. And I said, what's the toughest race in the world? They said, well, you're not even close to ready for this thing. But if you were really going to go for it, you wanted to risk your life, you got to do the Iditarod in Alaska during the winter when the temperatures are 30 below, and you got to do it by foot. So that's all I had to hear. So I signed up for that. And from there, it was history.
Just like that. And Joe, I want to learn more about these endurance races. And for all the listeners, an endurance race is a 100-mile plus race. And Joseph, I've read that you've done over 50 of these. What keeps you going, and how did you get started with these?
Yes. So the Iditarod by foot, mostly by foot. And then from there, I was hooked. And so that's not the kind of a race you want to re-sign up for. And so I just kept looking for the next challenge and things that were close by. So I just kept doing one after the other and became more and more addictive. And then from there, I had met a buddy of mine I got to know. His name's Andy. And Andy has come from a swimming background. He eventually became a swim coach. And if you know anything about swimming, these guys put 4 to 6 hours a day in the pool. So they are endurance animals. And him and I were out on a 12-hour snowshoe one night. And during the snowshoe, we thought, isn't it bizarre that at an Ironman or these, a certain marathon or whatever, you see these elite runners who are so tough and hardened. And if the weather's bad or their bike's not right or something's wrong, they drop out of the race. And it just didn't seem to jive why somebody that had put in all that training, had all that endurance, would drop from an event. So we said, why don't we create an event that purposely breaks people, that you're going to go through a certain tests within your personality and your core if you're climbing Mount Everest. Could we recreate that experience in a race over 24, 48, 72 hours where people were completely broken, peeing on themselves, and really got a chance to test their character because they weren't going to sign up to climb Everest. They didn't have 2 months and $50,000 to do such a feat, but we could recreate that and have this social experiment. And so the death race was born, and it worked. It worked famously. We tested people, and we still test people to their absolute limits. I mean, this year I had one of my favorite stories occur, which was they were about 30 hours into the race, 35 hours into the race. And this story is actually in the book. It's a great story. And they're completely exhausted. They can't see straight. And we put them all into a freezing cold pond, small lake, that they've got to swim a mile with a life jacket on and then come back to the dock and spin a roulette wheel. And one sliver on the roulette wheel says that they're done with the swim. 99% of the roulette wheel says get back in the water, do another mile. Now, everybody's hypothermic at this point because the water's that cold. And we've got a fire near the dock, whereas people come out and they're shaking uncontrollably. We're putting them by the fire. Then they don't want to go back in and they're quitting. Anyway, we miss the cutoff on the swim, and there's 3 people left in the water. 2 of them are 6'2" tall Marines that have 5% body fat. They're completely ripped. And one of them is this petite woman. Well, the 2 guys, when I give them the news, hit the ground and just start uncontrollably crying. And the woman takes her leg off, dumps the water out, puts her leg back on and says, hey, do you mind if I continue anyway? Because I told them, I'm sorry, you guys missed the cutoff. So that's the kind of inspiration that we're looking for. That's what this race is built for. And here were 2, Marines that served our country that obviously were heroes, were endurance junkies, were strong as hell, but we broke them. And here's this woman that couldn't be broken, right? She takes her leg off, dumps the water out, and puts it back on. Amazing story.
It really seems like it's the ultimate challenge of endurance and willpower.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It's there's nothing like it.
And when you were initially developing these races, were there any similarities between life and these races? I mean, life is really an endurance race. It's not a sprint. And it takes massive amounts of willpower to really succeed in life, or even just to push yourself, out of your comfort zone, or, into uncertainty or stepping into the unknown. That's really challenging. And there's not a lot of that going on in what I think in today's society.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem. I think currently we're all wrapping our lives in bubble wrap. With every passing generation, we get softer. And that's because we all seek, as a species, easier, faster, better, right? We talk about it in the book and Spartan Up. We're all striving to make things better, but easier and faster and cheaper is not necessarily better. And so this race is meant to turn your thinking upside down, change your frame of reference, and maybe making our lives a little tougher actually is better. So like you said, if you live life, I mean, instinctual, I'm going to sound like a nutcase, but instinctually when I was a kid, I wanted to test myself. I would take cold showers. I wanted to, everybody was putting the air conditioner on because it was really, really hot. And I said, no, I'm going to deal with it, because I thought to myself at a very young age, I thought, well, in India or any third world country, they don't have an air conditioner. They don't have heated water. If they could deal with it, I could deal with it. Let me just see what I'm made of. And that's not instinctual for a lot of people. That's not something people seek out naturally. But I did, and I think there's really some positive that comes out of that.
And Joseph, what are some of those positive experiences?
Well, and the biggest thing, when we've had a bunch of people pre-read the book, so I say, what do you get out of the book? And they say the biggest thing I get out of the book is it changes my frame of reference. And that's really a key term for what we're talking about here. If you think about our current lives, anybody listening, even you or me, we get upset over very silly things. Here's an extreme example. I had a woman recently was talking about her friend had cancer and she had to get a double mastectomy, and obviously it was terrible news, and she was talking about how brave she was, and certainly she was brave. I'm not taking anything away from her, but I said, just think about this for a minute. I said, just 100 years ago, if our family, our friends were looking to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, we had to load up the horses, which may have been sick because we didn't have money. We had to build our carriage that hooked onto the horses. We then got going, and 2 months into the trip, grandma dies. One of the kids gets eaten by a bear. The wooden wheel breaks and we've got no way to fix it. We finally make it to the West Coast. No one pats us on the back and says, man, you're so brave. It's just like, that's just life. Like, that's what we had to do to get through the next day. So if you have that frame of reference, in other words, if you were that family that went on that trip across the country, there's no way you're getting upset if there's no more room in first class on the plane, or if the coffee's too cold. Like, you're just happy that somebody's even got coffee to give you. It doesn't matter if it's hot, cold, black, or orange. So I think that's the biggest thing. If we all could adjust our point of view, our frame of reference in life, it will make our lives and the world a better place. I mean, have you ever, I don't know if you road cycle at all, but anybody in the audience that's road cycled has had an experience where a driver goes by and like screams or beeps because somehow, as a cyclist, you have caused that driver a massive inconvenience for having to turn their steering wheel a quarter of an inch. Massive inconvenience, so much so that veins pop out of their neck and they're aggravated that you're on the road. That's unacceptable. That's like, for us as humans, that's just an unacceptable reaction. But that reaction occurs because this morning, that guy didn't sweat and he didn't work and he doesn't have the proper frame of reference.
No, I like that. And I think that really kind of slaps you in the face. Even myself, if like my internet's going slow and I'm trying to like upload a podcast, I'm getting really upset because it's taking longer than necessary. Or yeah, like you said, you're driving and there's a cyclist and you have to move your steering wheel over. If somebody cuts you off, that's a perfect example of getting extremely irritated over something that, hey, maybe that guy's in a rush. Maybe he's got an interview. You don't know why that guy's speeding, but it just kind of puts you into perspective. But do you have any other examples of this kind of frame of reference?
When I had my Wall Street firm, I was excited because my previous business was the swimming pools and construction. And it was hard to run the swimming pool and construction business because a lot of the people working for me were uneducated and for whatever reason couldn't show up for work on time or just had tons of excuses. And so it became hard to run. Just like any business, it was hard to run because employees weren't living up to their end of the bargain. When I went to Wall Street, I thought this is going to be a much easier experience for me because I've got people graduating Yale, Harvard, Penn, Cornell. And so these are top of the game, high functioning individuals. And actually what I found was that these individuals were more difficult to deal with because by and large, they had everything in life, they had everything given to them. Their lives were bubble wrapped. And so here's a guy making $1 million or $2 million. We're paying him from our business and it wasn't enough. And they had that to complain about. And there was always something to complain about and fight about. And that's where this really started to become concrete in my mind, this idea that there's a message here. Like we could make the world a better place if we could just change people's frames of reference.
All right, and Joseph, there's a lot of guys here who are looking to start their own business or they currently are in entrepreneurship. How can they apply this frame of reference to building a business?
Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you already know, if you've been running your business for a while, you already know that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. You can't run your business any differently, that it's not going to happen. You know, your factory, God forbid, your factory burns down, your customers leave when you need them, you can't make payroll one week. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so the question is, how are you going to deal with that when it happens? And so what we talk about in the book is this idea we came up with called Spartan Strength. And Spartan Strength is derived from the process of going through all those trials, tribulations, obstacles. In our race, in Spartan race, or death race, those obstacles are physical barriers that we create. You go over walls, you crawl under barbed wire, you go through fire, you go swimming in an ice cold pond. But in business, those obstacles, as I just described, are things that go wrong. And after you've been through them, if you succeed, whether the race, the 100-mile run, the Ironman, the death race, or business, you start to remember and learn that all these little decisions that you make, and I like to call it upside downside decision making, and that's so important to have Spartan Strength. And what I mean by that is this ability. Let me give you a great example. So when you've been through this war, and the analogy I'll give is you're in a 100-mile run. You've never done one before, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, you've never dealt with a factory burning down before. And now you go through this 100-mile run and you go through the entire cycle of committing. You tell all your friends, you sign up for it, you pay your fee, really excited, your energy level's really high. You're 20 miles in and you're like, my foot's rubbing, I don't really feel great, my knee's bothering me. You're 40 miles in and you're like, man, I'm really thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm sweating, I'm not feeling great, my stomach's nauseous. You're 60 miles in, you're done. You're completely broken, can't take another step. You've now got a blister on your foot, you're crying a little bit, you're thinking to yourself, man, all those people around me that said I should never do this, they were probably right. Mile 70, you're busted. The blister has gotten so bad on your foot that you're now wobbling and you're walking in such a way that now you've pulled muscles and you're broken, you're done, you're pulled from the race. Now let's go back and look at that process. What you learned is actually that at mile 20, when you started to feel that little hot spot on your foot, had you taken care of it right then, at mile 70, which is a lifetime away, that wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have turned into a blister. You wouldn't have been walking funny. You wouldn't have then pulled a muscle. At mile 40, when you were feeling nauseous, had you eaten or drank. So my point is that when you go through this cycle of dealing with obstacles in life, in business, and endurance races, you learn that these tiny little things matter. So you start to make decisions based on what's the upside of taking care of this right now, taking my shoe off, taking my sock off, putting Vaseline on my foot, even if it's going to slow down my race because it's going to take me 30 minutes to deal with what seems to be an insignificant problem right now. Well, if you don't, it could cost you the whole race. Let me stop what I'm doing today and actually get some bids for that fire sprinkler system for the factory we have in Singapore. Because although it doesn't seem like important right now, if you've been through it, you're like, well, it makes a difference because the factory doesn't burn down. So the way I approach life on every day is, as we started our podcast right now, my wife went out snowshoeing. It is beautiful. I'm looking through my window, and I would have loved to go snowshoeing with her right now. But on May 15th, this book launches, Spartan Up. Is it more important that I do the podcast with you or go snowshoeing? Snowshoeing would be a lot more fun. I'll have a blast outside right now, but I made a commitment to do this book and reach lots of people with it, right? So it's more important that I do the podcast with you.
Now you're making me feel bad. I'm like taken away from your time there with your family.
No, I make that decision every day. My new office I'm in my kitchen right now, and the reason I'm working out of my kitchen is because I have 4 children, and there's nothing that's going to change me. I'm a workaholic. I work nonstop, whether it's endurance or business. And so I want to be around my kids and my family, right? So the upside is I get to be around my kids and my family. The downside is every once in a while when I'm on a podcast, my kids screaming or throwing a fork at me. But it's an easy decision because I don't want to get to the end of life and say, man, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids, which you hear from many parents.
Yes, a huge regret a lot of parents will have. And one thing that really just comes to my mind is what keeps you going? You're an endurance racer. You've done over 50 endurance races, 100-mile plus races. You're an entrepreneur building this business, and you're writing a book and a family man. Like, what keeps you going? You must be experiencing challenges every day in each one of those areas.
So I get asked that question a lot. We have 1 million customers at Spartan Race.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
thank you. The number one question, it's funny, let me back up for a second. We said when we started, we want to rip 1 million people off the couch, and that just seemed like an insurmountable goal. How would we ever get there? My mother taught me something great when we were kids, is you say it enough, it happens. I don't know if there's something in the universe. I'm not saying that I believe in like Harry Potter magic or anything, but I think what happens is when you say something over and over, you start to believe it, others start to believe it, and the boat just starts going in that direction. So our dream was to reach 1 million people. Now we want to reach 100 million people. And we got to 1 million, so I'm just going to keep saying it until we get there. But the number one question from those 1 million people is, how do you stay motivated? I want to be motivated. And it's really simple. I've created this success flow chart, which when you come out the other side, you've got Spartan Strength. But going in is the question you're asked, which is how do you get motivated to even start? And what I found, and in inquiring with these 1 million customers, they found is that you just need to commit. And so what do I mean by that? You're going to start a business, literally just name it, make a website, tell everybody you're doing it. Now you're committed. You're on the hook because you'll be embarrassed if you don't do it. You've already told 20 people. If it's about a race, get online and sign up. Whatever the race is, doesn't have to be a Spartan race. Tell everybody you know you're doing it. What that forces you to do is change your habits. Your alarm goes off in the morning. Yesterday, you could hit snooze because you weren't signed up for a race. Today, you're signed up for a race. You can't hit snooze. You have to wake up. You're going to go to bed early. You might not have that extra glass of wine. You're going to find new friends. You're going to eat healthier. And so that's what I do. I commit nonstop. That's it. I'm doing 300 burpees a day. That's my commitment. I tell everybody I know. Well, now I'm embarrassed if I don't do them. I have to do them. I'm on the hook. And I do that every day.
I like that. So you're telling the world your goals, and this holds you accountable for your goals and the dreams that you have.
Yeah, and ultimately you'll start to build so much integrity with yourself that it doesn't matter what other people think. You made that commitment to yourself. I made the commitment. I'm doing 300 burpees a day this year. I get crazy if I haven't done them. It's 11 o'clock at night. I haven't done it. I got to get them done.
All right, I like that. And Joseph, let's now go into the knowledge round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Have you ever tried to set up a website and just give up? Did you get overwhelmed? Was there just so much content available that you just put that project aside? Well, Squarespace makes it easy to quickly get a professional site up and running so you can focus on doing the things that you like doing and not coding. Squarespace is constantly improving their platform with new features, new designs, and even better support. They have beautiful designs for you to start with and all the style options you need to create a unique website for your personal taste and brand. It's incredibly easy to use, and if you need support, I know Squarespace has an amazing support team that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They even have a great support team with over 100 employees. I guess in New York City, the office has been codenamed the Care Bear Lair. And that's not it, guys. You can get started for as little as $8 a month, and this includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. It's a great deal, and that includes hosting, you guys. Every design automatically includes a unique mobile experience that matches the overall style of your site. So your content will look great on every device every time. That's really big, guys. Mobile is the future. If you sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use offer code KNOWLEDGE or simply go to squarespace.com/knowledge for men to get 10% off your first purchase and to show support for Knowledge for Men. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, Joseph, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose?
I'm going to steal one from the last question. I would just commit to something, anything out of your comfort zone. Go online, find some adventure, Grand Canyon, bicycle somewhere, do something. And something athletic, because it releases an enormous amount of drugs into your head, and you're not going to feel lost anymore. You're going to feel good.
And was there anything that was holding you back from becoming the man you are today?
I would say if anything holds you back, it's ego. And if you can lose your ego, you can do great things. There's something really powerful about being vulnerable. So don't be afraid to act vulnerable to others. Don't be afraid to ask for advice, ask for help. So many men, so many of us, simple example, are driving and lost and afraid to ask for directions. Who gives a shit? Don't worry about your ego. You just want to get where you're going.
Very good. And the next question is, it kind of draws on what we talked about earlier, but I mean, I feel that in society today, men in the 21st century are not the men, they used to be generations ago. And so the question is, well, what does it mean to be a man?
Well, I think we have a job to do. First of all, let me back up. Women are tougher than men. I've held enough experiments. I've got 1 million customers going through Spartan Race. I've seen the death race. I've done adventures myself. Women are tough.
So are you saying women are outperforming men in a lot of these endurance races?
Well, I mean, they're not faster or stronger. They are tougher. And I think a lot of that they have something to prove. My second child got more heart than my first child because he's always getting beat up. So women have something to prove. But I think the other thing is they give birth to children. So they're just hardwired to deal with pain. So that's number one. Number two, we have, as men, it's our job to be leaders. And whether it's to children, whether it's to our wives or our girlfriends, and not leaders in the sense that we have to make more money in the household, but we have to be the ones that can deal with problems because that gives others around us strength. And so in order to do that effectively, you got to step outside your comfort zone, right? Every generation that goes by, we are getting softer. You look at kids today, they're playing on computers. Just 1 or 2 generations ago, we'd be playing football outside. It's not happening anymore. That naturally makes us softer, weaker, and quite honestly, less of a leader that people can lean on and feel safe around.
So less masculine, could you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pick on anybody, but we're in 17 countries as a company. And there are countries, I'm not going to pick on the country, there are countries where when you look at billboards in those countries, you have to take a double take and say, is that a man or a woman? So some countries are getting softer, faster than others, but we're all going in the same direction. We are becoming very, very soft. And the line between gender is starting to blur.
Yeah. And it's up to us as men listening to this podcast and many other men out there to change that and to really stand up and say, this is my life. I'm a man and I'm going to go after what I want in life, and to really behold that masculine presence as a man. And women want this. The world wants this, for men to be men. And this is a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah.
But let's move on now, and let's go into, have you had any mentors or someone who said something to you that has had a tremendous impact on your life? And who was that, and what did he or she say?
I'm really, really lucky. I have 2 70-plus-year-old mentors that I lean on that kind of make sure I'm always going true north. Older people always have more experience because they've faced more obstacles, they've overcome more obstacles and challenges, and by and large, their number one thing they tell me over and over and over, and each year that goes by, I listen more, has been patience. You've got to have patience. Patience will give you grit. It'll give you perseverance. The thing that instant gratification, wanting it now, causes lots of problems as an individual and for the world. That's what I got from the guys that are giving me advice, and so that's advice I'd pass on. I'll give you. Let me go off on. We touch on something in the book called delayed gratification, and so anybody that knows of a test done in the '60s called the marshmallow test or the cookie test talks about this test where they took children and they put them in cubicles and they left a marshmallow or a cookie in front of the children, and they told the children, you can eat it now or we'll come back later and we'll give you 2. Well, by and large, most kids took the cookie or the marshmallow now. They followed the kids for 30 years. The kids that waited and had patience and didn't take the cookie or the marshmallow right now, they had better SAT scores. They did better homes, better success, better marriages. Everything in life, it was 100% correlated. And so my kid, my 8-year-old, who was 5 at the time when I tested him, we were out at a restaurant. It was late at night, and I said, I'll get you a scoop of ice cream. And the scoop came. I said, you could eat it now, or if you wait, I'll give you 2. And for him, that's a big deal because I never let them have junk food. And we're about 3 minutes in. I'm looking at my clock. I'm nervous because you get what you get, right? If he turns out to be a kid that doesn't have patience and wants it now, that's what I'm going to have to deal with the rest of our lives. And he turns to me about 3 minutes in and he says, Dad, how long do I have to wait to get 15 scoops? And you can't get a better answer. right? And that's what the two mentors have taught me. Like, don't chase the one scoop now. Let's play for 15 scoops.
And just did he actually wait and did he get the 15 scoops or what happened there?
The game was rigged because I'd never give him 15 scoops, but it was a good answer.
And you said he was 5 at the time?
He was 5 at the time. Yeah, it was a great answer. Yeah.
All right, Joseph. And I got a scenario here for you. Imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do and what would you tell him not to do?
I would tell my 20-year-old self that put all the time in now, work now, save money. Whatever you think you want to spend money on is a complete waste because you don't want to be working hard at 45, 50, 55, 60 years old. So 18, 20, 25, 30, those are the years where you can really kill it. I would completely abstain from partying, spending money. It's just a complete waste that you will not know is true until you're 45.
I like that. And Joseph, what's one underrated characteristic that you think if people would work on this, they would see massive results? It's something that, a lot of people don't look at, they're not thinking about.
Just drop the ego. Just completely be vulnerable to people. And well, one more is, and it's part of this, is listen, right? Listen more than you talk. 2 ears, 1 mouth. And that's part of ego, right? We all want to talk and talk about ourselves. But if you think about the people you really like and that inspire you, those are people that sit down and completely engage, look at you and listen to you.
Yeah, listening, very underrated skill. And when you listen, a lot of times people think you're like the best conversationalist just by listening when you speak less. And now, Joseph, let's go into what's your philosophy on life and success?
My philosophy on life and success is you get to define success however you want. In other words, success is not about making money or having the prettiest girl or whatever. You define it however you want. And I don't think, I'm just going to suggest, but again, you define it however you want, that there's anything better in life than helping people transform their lives. Now that may seem a little religious or a little too spiritual, but trust me, when the last business I've had is Spartan Race, I've had many businesses before that were all focused on money, making money, and this business is so much more rewarding, and I don't get paid anything, and it's just about changing lives. There's something really powerful about that.
And what do you mean you're not making anything?
I don't get paid a salary right now. We're still in this massive growth phase, so I don't get paid.
Wow, I have a lot of respect for that. You're just building, working, and just building something. You're not getting paid. So you are a great example of, not taking instant gratification and, going for that long route and getting the 15 cookies. And now there's something that I've noticed about you and what it takes for any athlete or endurance racer is developing that discipline. And how can you suggest guys improve their discipline in life?
Discipline is grit. Discipline is that ability to abstain from instant gratification. I would say you have to learn and feel, and again, we talk about this in the book, the benefits delaying gratification. So the benefit of waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and going outside in that cold weather and running, you're not going to feel or see that benefit for a few weeks. So if you can just push through the pain, it's not once, it's not twice, it's at least a few weeks, the benefits so far outweigh the negatives of waking up early that you will just start to get more and more discipline about things you do because you get so much reward out of it.
All right, and as we're coming to a close here, do you have any last parting piece of guidance or maybe a final short story for the listeners today?
So my daughter is 5 now, and they were at a ski race this weekend. I was down at our race in Atlanta, and she's got 2 older brothers, so she's constantly getting banged up and rolled. And they're all at a ski race. This is a real ski race. There's like announcers, there's newscasts, and the race is about to go. Not one racer is left yet. They're actually in the gate. And my daughter's coming down off to the side. She's going to come watch her 2 brothers. And she just decides to cut right in front of the first racer, do the whole course, comes to the finish line, throws her arms up. Now, there's no way that she didn't know what she was doing. She shouldn't have just stolen the race and jumped in. But you got to hand it to her, right? She got out of her comfort zone. She went and did something. She just grabbed life for that moment. And so I would say if a piece of parting advice is don't be afraid to just do something. Just jump in. and just make it happen. I think too many of us just follow the leader. And I can tell you from my own experience, that's not a great way to experience life.
Let's just sit with that one. That's really, just sit with that. Feel that. I think that's really an area that I think a lot of guys are lacking. Is it's natural for us to just kind of look for someone to lead, to just look around and say, who's going to take the lead. And as soon as someone does, we say, oh, okay, and we go with it. But to really question that, and also to step up yourself and you lead. All right, and so Joseph, that's going to conclude the knowledge round. And let's now go into what's exciting you today, like what's getting you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, obviously, about the book. First book ever. Knock on wood, we got to make it to the bestseller list. And then NBC, we're working really close with NBC. Hopefully, everything will be done and dusted really soon, and we're going to have our own TV show. So those are the two things at the forefront of my focus every single day.
So wait, a TV show for Spartan races?
For Spartan Race, yeah.
Wow, and so would this be the first type of televised event for these types of races?
Yeah, we had one on NBC last year. Now it's just a matter of putting together this very big deal, which will be multi-years, multi-events. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow. And would you say that some of the successful guys and women in these races are kind of becoming celebrities or stars?
Yes, they are. They're getting sponsorships and they get a lot of press. So yeah, it's all coming together for them.
This is insane. And you're kind of creating an industry or
sport.
Yeah, sport. And go ahead and give yourself a plug so all the listeners can get in contact with you.
Anybody can reach me at any time. I'm pretty accessible. Joe@Spartan.com. If you want to check out the races, just go to Spartan.com. And if the book sounds interesting, and it's definitely worth a read. As a matter of fact, I'll throw this out there. This is the only place I'll ever say this. If you get the book, read it, and don't like it, I'll give you your money back. How's that? It's SpartanUpTheBook.com.
All right. And I had this, I read this, and I wanted to clarify while I have you here, Joseph. For your races, do you have to sign something that says, you may die during this event?
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Wait until you see the video of what happened down in Mexico at the Mexico death race. It's gonna blow you away.
And I'll be sure to put that in the show notes for all the listeners to check out that video. I'll get the link from Joe. And Joseph, thanks again for being on the show and just sharing your time and your lessons with my community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and that's going to wrap up episode 51 with Joseph DeSena of the Spartan Races. All right, and the action item that I have for you guys today is, I know we're not all endurance racers, so I can't say go off and do a 100-mile event. But what I can tell you to do is push yourself. Push yourself physically. Push yourself physically and mentally today. So if you don't go to the gym, you're going to the gym today. And if you normally go to the gym, then you're going to push yourself. And I'm not talking about pushing weights, lifting weights and doing pull-ups and stuff. I'm talking about just running a minimum of 5 miles. That's your challenge. You're going to run 5 miles either in the gym or out on the road, just outside. So 5 miles. And for a lot of us, that could be the most we've ever ran in one point. So I don't think there's a lot of us that are marathon runners in here. So run 5 miles today. If you've never done it, this is your challenge. I'm going to do this today. And go ahead and post your results. Go ahead and email me at andrew@knowledgeformen.com. I want to hear about your run. And I want to hear about that mental challenge that you had to go through. Because we can all run 5 miles. We just don't really have a reason to do it. But I'm asking you to push yourself, mainly so that you can experience that mental challenge after you hit about 2 miles, when you're like, oh man, why am I doing this? You're out of breath. You're starting to get cramps. You're starting to feel a little pain. And I know it's not a lot, compared to, what Joe's doing. But for you listening, this is your challenge. 5 miles, get it done. I want to hear about it. All right, let's do it. Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.